And yeah, so back again with the Carpet Vanguard deck profiles. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get this one started. So this is going to be one of the first few decks I cover for DZBT15, Illusionary Strike of Shadows. So this is the Wirbel deck that actually got upgraded in DZ15, which is really cool. I'm using English deck log right now because I didn't want to search up all these cards individually on Japanese deck log, but the full deck list is in the description below. So without further ado, let's get this started. First up, we obviously have our Ride deck. Our main grade 3 is the Hellfire Dragon Wirbel Dragon. It has the ability that at the start of your main phase you get 3 energy. By blasting 3 energy as many times you want a turn, you can kill an opponent's rear guard, and if you don't kill something, it gets somewhere between 5,000 power and 10,000 power, depending on what grade your opponent's Vanguard's at. And at the end of the battle, the attack by energy blasting 6 or more total times that turn. You can counter blast 1 to stand it, but it'll lose drive checks. But then if you have a copy of it in your soul, you can soul blast to gain an extra drive back. All around, some very solid grade 3. It basically focuses this deck on rear guard retiring, but also getting good numbers out of Wirbel Dragon's skill as well, while also getting the standard Dragon Empire Vanguard multi-attack gimmick. As for our grade 2 of the Riot deck, it is Dragritter Azhaar. So its ability activates when it's rode upon by a specific Wirbel named unit, giving the Vanguard CB cost for its original auto ability -1 for the turn. Basically, on your first grade 3 turn, you can restand Wirbel for free, so you can spam your CB on things like Dragritter Sadiq or Dragritter Nirmihn as well, because they cost CB for their skills. As for our grade 1 of the Ride deck, it's Demonic Dragon Mage Jyokou. So when rode upon by Azhaar, you energy blast 3 to draw a card and give the Vanguard 5,000 power for the turn. So it's a good benefit in the sense that you do get an extra hand card, and it makes your Vanguard now somewhere between a 15k is now a 1 to pass instead of a no pass on the drive check. But Jyokou does end up taking away EB, which can be used for Wirbel skill. So if you want to make this card something like Rising Star Vargila to get yourself a free Ride deck, you can, but I like that extra draw from Jyokou. Our starter is Lizard Soldier Jisen, and we have our Energy Generator as the Ride deck crest. Moving on to our main deck, we have 4 copies of the new grade 3 Hellfire Dragon Empire Wirbel König. So this card has a lot of different abilities. The first one being that during the fight, it's also regarded as Hellfire Dragon Wirbel Dragon, meaning it can Persona ride off of the original Wirbel, and it can only be ridden from a grade 3 card Wirbel in the card name, so you can only ride this card on top of either itself or a Wirbel. While it's on the Vanguard circle, the max energy you can have is no longer 10, it's 15, which helps out a lot with its remaining skills, where when it's placed on the Vanguard circle, you automatically get a free energy charge of 3, and then it gets the original abilities of your Wirbel Dragon and your Solar drop zone for the rest of the fight, meaning it gains Wirbel's ability to charge 3 energy every single main phase, so the turn you ride König, you're charging 9 at least off of the Energy Generator, you're charging off of König, and then you're charging off of Wirbel OG. And then act Vanguard once per turn. By energy blasting 10, you retire every single one of your opponent's rear guards, and then you perform either deal your opponent 1 damage if they have 4 damage or less, or if they have 5 or more damage, Wirbel König gets plus 10,000 power. It's a very strong ability overall because every turn you're going to at least be getting 6 energy once you do ride on König, and once you have 10 energy, you can either choose to blast the 10 to murder everything and then get power or damage off it, or if you want, because it's copying the OG Wirbel's ability, you can feel free to spam OG Wirbel's EB3, kill a rear guard, possibly get power out of it, depending on which benefits you more in terms of number. Pretty great and solid grade 3 here. It's really good for numbers, and that's why we have it at 4 copies. Because of that, we don't have any main deck copies of the OG Wirbel because we have our all Persona rides in Wirbel König. Following that, we have 3 copies of Best Harvest. It's just a really great order for Wirbel, where it gives your Vanguard the free ability that anytime an opponent's rear guard's retired during your main phase, you draw a card. Again, on König, you're most likely going to merc like 4 to 5 rear guards. On regular Wirbel, you're probably merking somewhere between 3 to 5, depending on your opponent's board presence. So being able to use Best Harvest to help increase your hand every single time you retire a rear guard, really good. Then we have 1 copy of Radiance Caliburn as our other grade 3 order. So you get one of 2 abilities. You either can play this card to draw 2 cards, or you send it to soul to countercharge 1. This deck doesn't really have a soul problem, but it can run into a CB problem, so you might use it to countercharge, or again, depending on your situation, you might use it to draw 2 cards in case you haven't like seen Best Harvest throughout that game. As for our grade 2s, we move on to 4 copies of our Dragritter Sadiq. So Sadiq is a really great grade 2 in this deck, because when he's placed from the hand, as long as you reveal a Wirbel from the Ride deck or your Vanguard's already a Wirbel, you can counterblast 1 to call a card from the top 5 of your deck, and if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, then Sadiq is a 15k 15k base for the turn, so it gets you an extra rear guard, which is nice, and maybe makes Sadiq able to hit grade 3s without needing a booster. And then at the end of the turn, if you energy blast it, or 6 or more in total, by the actability of your Verbal Vanguard, you can retire Sadiq to either energy charge 3 or get a card from your drop zone into your soul. So again, if you're running into soul problems or you want to get a verbal into soul for the restand drive check skill, you can obviously use Sadiq's skill to send something from drop zone to soul, but if most times you're going to use it to energy charge 3, that way you can coning more consistently. Very good grade 2 for that. Then we have 4 copies of Dragritter and Nahala. Nahala is a really great grade 2 because as long as your Vanguard's a verbal, she has boost, which is great. And then while she's in the rear guard circle or in the drop zone, as long as you have not bound a copy of her that turn, you can bind her to give your grade 3 Vanguard that has verbal in the card name the ability that when it attacks, all your Fromies get 5,000 power for the turn, procs multiple times that turn, meaning when Coing or OG verbal restands for the second attack, whether you have drive checks or not, you're going to give another 5k to your front row, giving a grand total of plus 10k. Nahala is a really great grade 2 because you obviously can call down to board to be a 10k booster. You can early game rush with her, and if your opponent retires her, you can bind her from drop zone to get power. I just like having her in the deck. She's actually very cool. Our last grade 2 comes in at 2 copies of Dragritter Asara. So her ability procs from the drop zone, where as long as your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater verbal, you can soul blast 2 to call her. And if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, she'll also get 5k power. So you can also recall her, and all of your extra solo charging is going to go to Azhaar, obviously. And then while she's on rear guard or guard circle, and your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater verbal, she gets 5,000 power and 5,000 shield, making her a 15k base and a 10k shield. Again, a card you can early aggro with, but also recall infinitely from the drop zone once you see at least 1 copy of her. So pretty cool. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 copies of Dragritter Nirmihn. So Nirmihn, everyone kind of knows what this is because Vergila existed for a hot minute in the meta, but just in case you don't know what Nirmihn does, when she's placed on rear guard circle at any point during the game, you can counter boss 1 and check the top 7 for up to 1 grade 3 or greater card, add it to your hand after revealing it to the opponent, shuffle, but if you didn't anything, you countercharge. So you either get to search your Verbal Coing Persona Ride, Radiance Caliburn, or Best Harvest, and if you do whiff that search, you at least get a CC out of it, and then continues rear guard. If your opponent's rear guards are retired during the turn at all, she gets 5,000 power. So again, if either of your 2 verbals went off once, or even if you just attacked into a rear guard, it would still trigger her, she'll be at 13k base. So not a bad grade 1. You can play her as early as turn 2, most likely for the CB cost, get a grade 3 into your hand, and then just have an early game aggro. So pretty good grade 1 there. Then we have 4 copies of our next grade 1, Dragritter Najra. Najra's awesome because she gets you energy and she's just a good booster in general. After she boosts, if your Vanguard is either a grade 3 or greater verbal, or you have a grade 3 verbal in the ride deck, you send her to soul to draw a card, and again, that can be used as early as turn 1 because you can pull it from the ride deck. And then when she's in the drop zone, if your Vanguard's a verbal, bind her from the drop zone to energy charge 3, but you can't bind her again that turn. But still though, being able to get free 3 energy is great because that combos with Coing and that combos with your energy generator. So if you use this the turn that you ride Coing, you will automatically have 12 energy, so you can pay 10 to murder everything on your opponent's board. And if you use this the turn after you went to Coing, well, you charge 9 energy and you probably have excess energy from another turn. So Najra is all around a really great grade 1. I love having her in the deck. She gets you soul and she gets you energy for a very cheap and simple cost, so obviously she's a 4-of. Then we have 3 copies of our Mass Bullets of Duststorm Ivrines. So Ivrines is good because as long as you have a verbal grade 3 Vanguard, he gets the following abilities. When placed on the rear guard circle from the hand, he'll energy charge you 3, so you can't use him with Sadiq, but I mean still an on place from hand, E-charge 3 is good. And you also cannot activate the abilities of your energy generator that turn, so you can't EB7 to draw with this, but this is getting you free 3 energy, which is great. And then auto rear guard, when he boosts, he gets 5,000 power for the battle. But then if he boosted a verbal grade 3 or greater unit, it's not even the Vanguard, but a rear guard, you can soul blast 1 to stand him, meaning he can boost twice, which is good. So you're running Valna as your over trigger, then this has potential to boost twice. But either way though, being a 13k booster that can restand is good. And that free 3 energy just by simply being placed makes this card even better. It's not a hard once per turn either, so you can keep playing copies of Ivrines if you have extras in the hand to get more energy that turn. So technically this thing can charge you 9 in one shot if you have enough. And then the last grade 1 we have that isn't RPG is Dragritter Sufyan. So Sufyan's ability also procs from drop zone, which activates when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard verbal in this card name is placed, either from the hand or from ride deck. If you don't have a copy of Sufyan on your board, and you never will because there's only 1 copy of it in the deck, you can call her to rear guard circle, and if you do it at the end of the turn, she goes to soul, getting you soul for Asara, which is good, but also the fact that she gets you a free rear guard onto your board, which is really appreciated. I just like having her as like an extra backup just in case like I'm playing against another board nuke deck, or because verbal doesn't like to give me good draws off of Best Harvest. 9 times out of 10 I just draw 5 triggers, so yeah, having the ability to like recall rear guard when most times I actually do need it is very helpful, and you only really need 1 of her anyways. Our last grade 1 in the deck comes from 4 copies of our PGs and Guardian Monk of Raging Flames Monju. So it's just the standard that once you put on a guard circle, choose a unit, it cannot be hit for that battle, but then if you have 2 more cards from your hand, you gotta discard it. You can run one copy of Elementary Sanctitude. I don't like running it because, like I just said with Best Harvest, 9 times out of 10 I will just straight up draw 5 triggers from Best Harvest, so I would rather be able to call Monju if I do draw Monju, because Best Harvest loves to make me draw bad cards, rather than having to not be able to call PG, which could make the difference between me winning and losing. So yeah, I like to have the 4 copies of Monju just in case for the extra norm unit pressure, but if you want to run the Blitz Order PG because not a lot of stuff can stop Elementary Sanctitude from going off, you can feel free to do it, and I recommend running the Triple Drive Elementary Sanctitude if you do run one. As for our triggers, we have a total of 7 crit, 3 being Conduct Spark Dragon, 4 being Burning Flow Dragon solely to keep up the soul for Asara. We have 4 copies of Flare Veil Dragon, who, gives you extra shield once your opponent's Vanguard's at grade 3 or greater. I used to run fronts in this spot, but then Nahala existed, and that fixed pretty much all of my number problems, so yeah, draws are good on that one. And then we have our 4 heal in White Light Dragon Parasolace, and then we have our last card in the deck, which is the Overtriggering Dragon Deity, King of Resurgence Dragveda. I like getting the extra Vanguard restand, and because of how Wirbel's restand skill works compared to something like Varga, you can drive check this card before you do the restand with Wirbel, and then still have Wirbel's ability to do another restand with at the end of that second battle. And if you pull up this during the second battle, well, you probably got drive checks off it anyways, which means you're going to have a set of drive checks. So on Dragveda, it's a good overtrigger. You can make this card Fauna if you really want to, but I like having Dragveda for the extra Vanguard attack, because possibly 3 Vanguard attacks is a lot of offensive pressure in this deck. But without further ado, that's it for the showcase of this deck itself. Let's go ahead and move on to the fight.
Moving on to our matchup, we have Wirbel versus Maelstrom. So this is a rematch for us technically, because the night prior to this, when we first built these 2 decks, we actually had these 2 go head-to-head, and I was really expecting Wirbel to lose here because A, Oolong probably learned from his mistakes from the previous night, but B, well, so have I just don't think Wirbel can win considering my normal streak with Wirbel. So I start off by discarding my Nahalas because, I got good discard fodder here. I also have the grade 1 that can energy charge, which is also really nice. I take 2 damage early on because, well, I wanted at least 1 so I can use Nirmihn to top 7 surge, and I hit Best Harvest here, which is good. I was really trying to hit Coing, but thankfully I have the extra CB to Sadiq. Of course, you see me see triggers, and this is the normal thing for Wirbel, so I just call down the Burning Flow because I know that if I don't, I'm just going to hard draw it anyways, because that's how my life works with Wirbel, and thankfully it worked out here where I could early game rush, and that Burning Flow, believe it or not, is going to be the catalyst for the game ending because it's a constant rear guard. Oolong will never actually retire it, and it always puts just enough offensive pressure with the boost, being able to allow my rear guards to hit. So even though it seemed dumb to call off a burning off of Sadiq, it actually worked out in my favor. We take the 1 damage here, and technically I don't need damage for this next turn, but I choose to take it anyways just because. We go into our grade 3 turn, and we're going to just go right into Wirbel. Oolong ended up spamming his board against me because he wanted to, quote-unquote, push me to higher damage because he knew he would need to if he wanted to beat me with Maelstrom Reverse. That's what he learned from the previous night. Unfortunately for him, I had Best Harvest activated, and, well, at least got me 3 extra cards in my hand to balance out resources. Meaning their Vanguard restand was also very helpful here. And again, I see, thanks to that Burning Flow, I didn't have to commit an extra hand card to get a rear guard push on Vanguard Circle. And now I'm set up for Coing next turn because now I got 9 energy thanks to Sadiq, or I got 3 energy thanks to Sadiq. He goes into reverse, and reverse I'm a little bit terrified of because he's going to get his full board activated. And if it's anything like the previous night, he's going to end up hitting me with columns that equal somewhere near the 40s or 50s, also being able to retire my board, while also probably putting me to either Death's Door or actually ending the game. But unfortunately for Oolong, he ends up whiffing some of his cards, and as he will say during the full game, he ended up making some misplays that prevented him from getting 6 attacks this turn, unfortunately. So he ends up locking his board, or at least part of it. He puts a little bit of offensive pressure, what I learned from last night and what I did last night too, which is straight up normal guard everything I can before it gets deadly. When he swings with Maelstrom Reverse because only the 3rd battle, he doesn't have crit pressure, I go ahead and take it. If he sees 2 crits, I lose off it, but thankfully he doesn't see anything. I damage check a Coing. He then attacks again with his other rear guard to get drive check. We're in the situation where he pulls the over, I lose anyways, but he doesn't pull it thankfully. And then he locks his rear guard, and then he goes for the last attack. I take another damage, which is another Coing. See what I mean by the deck hates me with the grade 3s? Because the only other Coing I have is the one I searched off of. Actually, not even searched. I drew it thanks to Best Harvest because I got to drive check it. Sadiq comes down. Thankfully, I don't fully whiff his skill. I mean, I still saw 4 triggers, but at least I get a rear guard out of it, and we just end up EBing 10 for a Wirbel Kong skill, retiring the entire board. Unfortunately, I don't have another Best Harvest to proc off of that, but it's fine. The Vanguard gets additional power anyways. I probably could have paid the extra EB for the skill of Coing that it gained from OG Wirbel, but I just chose not to because I didn't feel like it was worth it. And that's it for the deck. As you guys kind of saw in the match, it really does accelerate in terms of numbers thanks to the help of Nahala. The additional cards that energy charge definitely make it so that Wirbel Coing skill can proc off as soon as possible. Not to mention the fact that being able to retire the opponent's whole board and either get 10k to the Vanguard or deal them an extra buff damage is a very helpful and strong ability, and Best Harvest is an excellent addition to the deck. All around, Wirbel is a very fun deck to play, and I'm very surprised that Wirbel now has 2 wins under its belt straight in a row without losing a game, because, oh, that never happens in this deck. But I'm going to just want to hear what you guys enjoy. If you guys have any suggestions on how to build this deck for other Wirbel players, by all means, put them down in the comments below. If you guys have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask, and I'll happily answer. But without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.